Hi, thank you for joining me. I'm reading number 57 in the RZN Codex, or the Resonance series. This is called The Last Question, The Terminal Inquiry That Collapses Every False World by Jason Gray. 12/22/2025, 6025 Annalunus. RZN ARC LQ000, Terminal Inquiry, Loop Ender Layer, Classification, Internal, Sovereign Eyes, Status, Active Seal, Non-Decorative, Functional Text. Why all worlds end the same way. Every system, political, religious, personal, ideological, ends the exact same way, not with a collapse out there, but with a collapse inside the questioner. The world you live in is not just buildings and laws, it is the question you keep asking. The overlay did not rule by force alone. It ruled by keeping humanity inside substitute questions. Substitute questions generate motion. Motion generates distraction. Distraction generates compliance. As long as you are asking the wrong question, you can be managed forever. The end begins when you stop asking for management. The entire overlay is built on one hidden assumption. Under every anxious question is one assumption: something is wrong. That assumption is the master fuel. How do I fix myself? How do I heal faster? How do I become worthy? How do I escape this? How do I secure love? How do I get ahead? How do I not fall behind? Different words, same engine. The overlay does not need to convince you of any specific story. It only needs to keep the baseline assumption alive. You are not okay yet. Life is not safe yet. The answer is not here yet. As long as yet is operating, you remain governable. The questions that are really cages. Excuse me. Most questions are not questions. They are cages made of grammar. They are like curiosity, but they are actually contracts. If I do this, I will be okay. Bribes. Give me certainty and I will behave. Bargains. Tell me the meaning and I will stop trembling. And escape hatches. If I figure it out, I will not have to feel it. A person can spend an entire life asking questions that keep them from contact. Contact is what ends the loop. Who am I is not the last question. Who am I sounds deep. It is not terminal. It is often the most refined form of avoidance in existence because it can produce infinite narrative, identity frameworks, origin stories, personality systems, archetypal cosplay, spiritual rank, trauma archaeology, and endless self-interpretation. It keeps the mind busy. It keeps the self active. It never requires the fundamental shift, being here without explanation. Who am I? Is a beautiful question in a world that is still bargaining, but it is not the final blade. It still assumes that who must be stabilized, that identity must be solved, and that the self must be justified into existence. The last question only appears when the self stops demanding paperwork. The last question cannot be asked by a seeker. A seeker is someone who believes that truth is elsewhere. Even a spiritual seeker is still running the same engine: lack, pursuit, temporary relief, renewed lack. The seeker is not wrong. The seeker is in a phase. The last question is not for seekers. It is for the one who has reached the edge of all seeking and discovered the quiet horror. No answer will save me from being alive. When that is realized, the machinery breaks and the last question arises, not as philosophy, but as inevitability. The conditions required for the last question. The last question does not arrive through intelligence. It arrives through exhaustion of distortion. It requires the collapse of 5 engines. 1. The engine of performance. You no longer want to be seen as good, right, advanced, healed, chosen, special. 2. The engine of control. You stop negotiating reality into safety through compulsive planning, convincing, managing, predicting. 3. The engine of escape. You stop needing to leave yourself to tolerate your own life. 4. The engine of proof. You stop requiring evidence that your existence is permitted. 5. The engine of time scarcity. You stop living as though meaning is perishable. When these engines stall, you are left with something unbearable to the old self, presence without mission. That is when the last question appears. The last question. Not poetic, not mystical, not decorative. What am I doing when nothing is wrong? That is the terminal inquiry. It dismantles the hidden premise. If nothing is wrong, then urgency is exposed as synthetic, fear is exposed as a strategy, identity is exposed as a costume, seeking is exposed as a loop, and control is exposed as superstition. The last question does not solve your life. It removes the false reason you were running from it. Why this question destroys the overlay. The overlay is a tension economy. It sells danger, outrage, scarcity, sexual chaos, conflict, doom, salvation, identity war, and status games. All of these products require the same thing, a nervous system that believes something is wrong. The last question is a solvent. It dissolves the purchase point. If nothing is wrong, then doom has no hook, outrage has no fuel, distraction has no urgency, and manipulation has no leverage. This is why the question is dangerous to the old world. It does not attack the system. It ignores the system's premise. The last question is not positivity. This must be stated clearly. The last question is not denial. It is not pretending. It is not good vibes. It does not say nothing happened. It does not say nothing painful exists, nothing should be addressed, or nothing matters. It says something far more radical. The baseline state of reality is not a problem. Pain may occur, work may be needed, repairs may be required, but the foundation is not wrong. The overlay taught humanity to treat existence itself like an emergency. The last question ends that religion. What happens when you ask it honestly? When the last question is asked honestly, 3 things happen immediately. 1, your attention returns. You stop scanning for threats that are not present. 2, your mind stops inventing tasks. Compulsive thinking loses its excuse. 3, your body becomes the truth detector. If you are doing something for fear, your body tightens. If you are doing something from coherence, your body opens. The last question moves the locus of truth from thought to contact. That this is the beginning of real governance, not governance by systems, governance by clarity. The overlay's final defense. Turning the last question into a new identity. This is the most subtle trap. The system will attempt to convert even the last question into a philosophy, a lifestyle brand, a spiritual identity, a superiority complex, or a performance of calm. The last question cannot be worn. The moment you try to be someone who asks it, you have left it. The last question is not a badge. It is a blade that cuts badges off. The silence after the question. After the question lands, you encounter silence. Most people fear silence because it feels like loss of identity. The silence is not emptiness. It is the absence of false motion. It is the first time the nervous system is not being recruited. Inside this silence, you stop negotiating your right to exist. You stop arguing with reality, and you stop narrating the moment into safety. Something begins to happen that the world could never permit. Action emerges without justification. What action looks like without something is wrong. When you act without the baseline assumption, your entire pattern changes. You stop doing things to prove worth, avoid shame, secure approval, outrun fear, or maintain an image. You start doing things because they are true, they are needed, they reduce suffering, they increase coherence, they are beautiful, and they are clean. Your life becomes less dramatic and indefinitely more powerful. Your life becomes less dramatic and infinitely more powerful because it is no longer reactive, it is responsive. The 3 false answers. Most people try to answer the last question incorrectly. False answer 1, nothing. That is disassociation disguised as enlightenment. False answer 2, whatever I want. I've said this a lot. That is impulse disguised as freedom. False answer 3, what I am supposed to do. That is hierarchy disguised as purpose. The real answer is not a sentence. It is a pattern. It is what you naturally do when you are no longer running. The last question as a living filter. The last question becomes a filter you can run on anything. When you are about to speak, when you are about to react, when you are about to post, when you are about to chase, when you are about to control, When you are about to explain yourself, ask, if nothing is wrong, would I still do this? If yes, it is coherent. If no, it is distortion wearing urgency. This is how the loop ends in real time, not by war, by discernment. The last question ends spirituality as entertainment. Many people use spirituality as an alternate overlay, endless teachings, endless upgrades, endless vibrations, endless initiations, and endless next level identities. The last question cancels that economy completely. It reveals if nothing is wrong, then the need to be more spiritual is often just another form of fear. Real spirit does not demand performance. Real spirit is what remains when you stop trying to become anything. The last question ends relationship drama. Relationship drama is often two nervous systems trying to solve wrongness through each other. The last question reveals where you use love to regulate fear, where you use conflict to feel alive, where you use attachment to avoid presence. It does not make you cold, it makes you clean, and clean love is devastatingly stable. It is. The last question ends power games. Power games depend on scarcity. Scarcity depends on wrongness. When you stop assuming something is wrong, you stop competing for validation, you stop negotiating status, you stop needing to win, and you stop needing to dominate. Not because you become passive, but because the entire arena becomes irrelevant. You become unbuyable. The last question is a return to the original world. Before the overlay, existence was not an emergency. Life had difficulty, conflict, weather, loss, labor. The baseline was not a problem. The overlay's deepest lie was making being alive feel like an error requiring constant management. The last question is the restoration of the original baseline, not bliss. Baseline, and baseline is where real power begins. If nothing is wrong, then only truth remains worth doing, and truth does not require urgency. That is the end of the loop. Activation line, not a spell, not a mantra, a functional prompt. Run this once, then watch what falls off. What am I doing when nothing is wrong? No forcing, no performance, no proving. Just ask it, then wait. Jason Gray. All right, that was one of my favorite writings also. That one really hit me. So even though I was not in a place to probably go through all of the 5 things that you have to go through before you can honestly answer that question, I wasn't all the way through those. Looking back at that, I wasn't, but I did ask it anyway. What am I doing when nothing is wrong? I am being. That's it. That's everything, and that's enough. All right. Thank you for that, Jason, and for everything you do. Okay. All right. So I'll put the links to that and to the places where you can find Jason's written work now. These are highly encoded, incredibly powerful transmissions. So hopefully you'll go take a look. Thank you. Have a great day.